How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Hey guys, so I got some follow-up. I'm a little behind on the 8 ball there, but today we're going to be talking a little bit about Emmanuel Haro's case. You got Jake Haro on the left, Rebecca Haro on the right. Right now, September, I think it was 16th, they went back to court. I have an update. And then as you could see on the thumbnail, it says Rebecca is innocent. And that's what they heard Jake saying. And I have a perspective that I want to put out there. And it relates to their first court appearance when he told Rebecca, I love you. I think it's to have some level of control over the narrative. And at this point, on September 16th, that court appearance, this is about strategy now. So I'm going to quickly go over what that court appearance was for on the 16th. And then I want to talk about a little deeper about the Rebecca is innocent. And today I have my guest, Joe Pangaro. What's up, Joe?
Hey, how are you, Anthony?
Good. Joe, how's your podcast coming on? I see you posted some really good content recently.
Oh, thank you. Yes, the Blue Heart webcast. It says podcast there because it's on the podcast networks and it's on YouTube. And on YouTube, we call it the webcast. So it's been doing very well. I think a lot of your people who watch your programs have been running over and taking a look at what we're doing. So I really appreciate everybody.
Yeah, it's really good content, Joe. Hey, Joe, you might just give me yourself another introduction, please?
Sure. Retired Lieutenant Joe Pangaro here. I served for 27 years. Most of the time, I was a criminal investigator. I worked my way up through the ranks. I was a school safety and security director, chief security officer in the corporate world. I write books. I do online training, I do in-person training, and I try to stay abreast of everything going on out there as we all chase justice.
Yes. Now, guys, just a very quick update, guys. I have covered this case a lot, very different angles. I would definitely check out the other videos I've posted on this, but I want to give another update. I'm trying to follow this as best I can. But you got Jake Haro on the left, Rebecca Haro on the right. They have been charged with the murder of Emmanuel Haro. Be advised, at this time, they have not discovered the body of Emmanuel Haro. So I'm assuming it's very strong circumstantial evidence. And they were officially charged on August 22nd. They had their arraignment hearing, and now they're starting to move through the process. Jake has a very, very negative history. They consider him a experienced child abuser because of what he did to his first child, Promise Faith, when she was only 10 weeks old. This was back in 2018. He was found guilty of that in 2023. But with that said, the punishment really didn't fit the crime. That seems to be a bit of a debate on that right now. And I totally agree that he deserved more time than what he was actually given, which looks to be mostly a 6-month work release program. There you go. A 6-month work release program. The question was, was it a deal? Did the judge make the call on that? It's just a total back and forth of who's to blame, when at the end of the day, we don't want this to happen again. That's the key. So right now, I believe September 16th, which just passed, that was what they call the felony settlement conference. So what I want to do real quick, guys, is just read to you just a quick little update before we go into what the main part of the show is going to be, which is Jake protecting Rebecca, or is he protecting himself? Because it's been documented that he said Rebecca is innocent, but there's something he's not saying. He's not saying he did it. So this is not a confession. I have people messaging me like, hey, it looks like Jake is confessing. He's not confessing. I think this is still part of a strategy. But real quick, just to get you guys caught up. So the felony settlement conference, this was a procedural hearing where the judge, prosecution, and defense discussed whether a plea deal could be reached before trial. These conferences often involve quiet negotiations. Prosecutors may offer lesser charges if one or both defendants plead guilty. But at this point, no deal was reached, so the case continues. The meaning is the court gave both sides a chance to resolve the case without trial. The door is still open for a plea deal before October. But right now, it looks like there's going to be another another settlement conference going to happen October 16, 2025. So the judge scheduled another settlement meeting a month later, which is going to be October 16th. This gives both legal teams more time to talk strategy, weigh the strength of evidence, and negotiate plea offers. What does that mean? The timeline is deliberate. Judges want to ensure both sides have time to work out on an agreement, but not let the case stall indefinitely. That's why there's that month marker. Then there's going to be, if there's no plea, they're probably set for a preliminary hearing on October 28, 2025. So if no plea deal is reached, the case moves to a preliminary hearing. This is like a mini trial where prosecutors must show enough evidence to justify going to full trial. The standard is lower than beyond a reasonable doubt. The judge only needs to see probable cause. Meaning, unless the deal happens, October 28th will be the day the case officially shifts towards trial. Now, there was a protective order signed. The judge signed a protective order to keep sensitive evidence sealed from the public. This might include autopsy findings, abuse records, or witness testimony. Both defense teams objected, likely because they wanted more freedom to use certain details in motions or media coverage. So what does this mean? The court is protecting the integrity of the case and possibly surviving children witnesses, if there are witnesses in the house. It limits what attorneys can leak outside court. Now, there is tension between the defense strategies. Reports suggest Jacob's legal team wants to delay the case while Rebecca's attorneys want to move faster. Why is this happening? Now, remember, guys, Rebecca and Jake have separate lawyers. Jake is represented by the public defender's office, and Rebecca is represented by a court-appointed defender, technically, but it's private, but it's still taxpayers' money. So why does that? Okay, so delaying does help Jacob. More time allows his team to review evidence, hope witnesses' memories fade, or wait for prosecutors to weaken under pressure. In some cases, delay can also increase leverage for a plea. Mind you, guys, Jacob's got a lot of things not going for him. He's got that history he had with Promise Faith, and there's a lot of people that believe that the evidence of the abuse really is coming from Jake. That's what a lot of people are believing. But they do believe that Rebecca's not innocent. They do believe maybe she could have taken part of it, or she could have took a part in it, or maybe she also could have been the victim of abuse, and his influence on her, his power on her, could have weakened her want to some extent, or her ability to react. Now, granted, guys, I'm not giving her an excuse. No one here is giving her an excuse. It's just a perspective. But either way, Jake is probably going to look to slow things down because, again, he's already got things going against him. So basically, he's going to want to strengthen his case, and usually time will help him with that. But Rebecca may want speed. So speed helps Rebecca. If her lawyers think she's less culpable, they may want to push the case forward quickly before prosecutors solidify evidence that paints them both as equally responsible. That's the key. And moving fast could also help separate her from Jacob's narrative, meaning if the split strategy is true, it creates tension between co-defendants. Prosecutors could use that tension to try a divide and conquer approach, playing one side against the other to secure cooperations or plea. And guys, I broke that down. That is in an older episode. You have to watch it. We did that a few weeks ago, and it really breaks down how the prosecutor can maybe come in and work with Rebecca's lawyer, because I really do believe a lot of it is going to push towards Jake, and ultimately they want the person that is responsible for the act, the main person that is responsible for what happened to Emmanuel. And that's where you may start to see this divide and conquer. And as I said, I think Jake is aware of that. That's why during the arraignment, he yelled, "I love you." I mean, does he really love her? Or is he just trying to continue that influence now that she's not in his sight anymore, not under his direct control? Maybe the word "I love you" could resonate. It's a play on sympathy. But the big picture, September 16th was about scheduling, positioning, and control, not about guilt or innocence. The critical dates are now the 16th of October, that's the settlement talks, and October 28th, which is the preliminary hearing. So how Jake and Rebecca's attorney align or split in strategy could heavily shape the outcome. So the bottom line, settlement conference equals plea deal talks. Then you have the preliminary hearing, probable cause test for trial. Remember, it doesn't have to be beyond reasonable doubt, it's just probable cause. protective order, which we just talked about, that limits evidence disclosure, and the defense strategy split. If Jacob delays and Rebecca pushes forward, prosecutors gain leverage to fracture their united front. Now, I have one more part, but before I go into that, Joe, anything you'd like to add on to this before I go into a little bit more of the protective order?
Well, I think you hit on a lot of points there, Anthony. That all goes into the background of what happens in a trial. You know, we have the human element here as well. I think her being separated from him, if he had that kind of control over her that you're talking about, this is certainly going to probably damage his case, because the more time she has away from him, the more they can talk to her, get her counseling. Maybe she starts to realize, I'm not in danger from him. He's not here every minute, and this isn't going right. And they could be talking to her about the baby. They can't find the baby. You know, there's a lot that goes into this. So how this all plays out is going to include them as a couple and as individuals, and then how the prosecutors are going to move forward.
Yeah, that's the divide and conquer. And I want to just go quickly with the protective order. Protective order in a criminal case does not mean the defense can't see the discovery. The U.S. Constitution guarantees defendants the right to see the evidence against them. That's discovery. How it actually works, what a protective order does, it limits how the evidence can be used or shared. Defense attorneys and their teams can review the discovery, but they may be restricted from sharing it with the public or press, giving unrestricted copies to the defendant, especially in jail cases, and allowing the information to circulate beyond attorney, investigators, and experts working on the case. Because remember, they still haven't found Emmanuel yet. So there's still an investigation. So they do have to be very protective of any information that can mess with the effectiveness or the integrity of the investigation going on. So here's an example real quick. If there's autopsy photos or child abuse reports, the defense can see them to prepare their case, but they might not be allowed to hand copies to Jake or Rebecca to keep in their cells or to release them in media filings. Now, what a protective order doesn't do, it does not block the defense from accessing the evidence. It does not give the prosecution secret evidence that only they can see. And the defense still has the right to review everything that will be used against their client at trial. Why judges use protective orders? To protect privacy, especially with child victims or investigations, to avoid prejudicing or a future jury. So if details leak to the press, to prevent intimidation or harassment of witnesses, and to maintain fairness when cases are under intense media scrutiny. So bottom line here is the defense still gets the discovery, but they're limited in what they can do with it. It's about controlling distribution, not blocking access. Okay, so that's what I got about the courts. Anything about the protective order there? Joe, you familiar with those?
Yes, absolutely. And I think one of the big things you have to look at, and people, when I train police officers in courtroom, how to deal with the courtroom, high profile cases, any kind of case, they're always shocked that we all have seen through our whole life, right? Raise your hand, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You think everything would come out in that testimony. Everything would be laid on the table. And in reality, it's not always that way. A protective order does a couple of areas you got to worry about. Leaking things out, that could influence the jury pool. So right now, even in the show here that we're talking about, these episodes, we see all the comments. People have their own opinions by what they've seen, by what they've heard us talk about, on what actually took place, what didn't take place. Well, if any of those people got called to the jury, they would have those opinions based on what they heard and saw throughout all the media and throughout other things. So you can certainly leak things strategically. You can certainly leak things to change people's opinions, or it could hurt your case. I mean, I think the whole idea about, where is this baby, that goes into, and I guess we could talk about that, is how fast this is moving. Where is this baby? That's making this guy look worse and worse and worse. If he knows he got rid of the body, but they can't find it, he doesn't want to find it. Why doesn't he want to find it? So the evidence, protecting evidence and witnesses, it's amazing that we have to do that, but we do, because attorneys, God bless them, when you're in trouble, everybody wants a good attorney. They will use everything they can to zealously defend their client. And if that means leaking things that could help their client, if that means making statements that could help their client using the evidence, I think some of them would do it. So that's one of the things. You're right. The judge is trying to maintain the integrity of this whole thing so it doesn't slip away when it gets to court. We go through all this, and now we have to move the jurisdiction. Well, that's very, very difficult. That's very, very costly. It adds more things for the attorneys to fight about and just drags things out. So maintaining that case through a protective order is probably a smart idea. Public wants all the information, but now's not the time we're going to get it. We got to protect that case, put on a good case, protect their rights, right? Remember, you're innocent until proven guilty. That's bedrock of our system. But at the same time, we want to make sure that the trial is fair and we don't end up losing it because, well, this got leaked and that influenced people, right? Then you don't get justice when that happens.
Yeah, now, guys, remember, guys, this is now where you start to see strategy. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of stay connected to the narrative I've been putting out there now. So if you see the other videos I've done, guys, there's a series of videos on this. What we try to do is try to provide multiple perspectives so you can try to apply it elsewhere. And we've done that for other shows. We just did one with Christina Formello, the teacher that was having sex with the 14-year-old boy. Then we did one with Lakin Snellen, the cheerleader that may have killed her kid. We're still trying to figure all that whole story out. And then even with the Ding Dong Ditch, the Kohlberger cases, I mean, we try to give out a lot of knowledge that could be applied elsewhere because we're also learning the process as well. So I want to go back to the arraignment here where Jacob said, "I love you" to Rebecca. And when I did that video a while back, I believed at that point that was just a way to keep control. I knew at that point that they were separated. You got a lawyer on one side, a lawyer on the other, prosecutor in the middle, trying to figure out where they could start working on who's going to flip first, because we know that's usually what they're going to try to do, a divide and conquer method. And we did a great video on this. It really explains that. But then we also said you got to be very careful because when the co-defendants can't speak to each other, the media sometimes gets misused. Sometimes they'll talk to the media and they'll pass messages through the media. And it's very intentional, but the media will wind up not realizing they're doing it, keeping their connection. And when this was going up, the hearing on September 16th, it was two things were said. One was that he said Rebecca is innocent. And two, they also said, but it hasn't been verified, that there was a neighbor or somebody that could say that Rebecca has been abused too. And that basically they're starting to become some pity towards Rebecca. Now, with that said, on this channel, nothing minimizes what she's done or been a part of, but we're going to continue with the narrative based on what's in context here, is that Jacob is the bigger player of the two. And when he yelled, Rebecca is innocent, I've been getting questions coming my way. Guys, that's not a confession. He could be saying Rebecca is innocent, but what he's not saying is, I did it. So that's not a confession. So, Joe, do you think Jake's defense of Rebecca, because he is saying she's innocent, is an act of love? Or are we starting to get now to the legal strategies, the legal tactics of maybe still trying to maintain some level of control? Or if I can't control, maybe I'm going to let her know we're still on the same side and maybe draw some sympathy.
I think you're hitting on it right there. That's my first go-to with it would be, deal with them as human beings, people in a relationship. They're in love. This horrible thing happens. And initially, I love you. Was that a controlling thing in the beginning? It might have been. Now they have been separated for a while. She's probably getting some kind of counseling if she was victimized. His attorneys are probably talking to him saying, listen, they're trying to split you two off. This is what they're going to do, a strategy. So by him yelling that, I love you, I think that is, or she's innocent, by yelling that out is a way to message to her, see, I'm not giving you up. I'm not saying bad things about you. Don't you give me up, right? Mm-hmm. She's innocent, but you're right. He didn't say, but I did it, but he did call out for her to hear she didn't do it, or she's innocent, right? So I think that's I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. It's still, I think, a controlling thing for him. Hey, see, I'm not over here hurting you. Don't hurt me over there.
Yep. And then, so we're going to I have 5 questions I want to toss to Joe's way. And then, guys, remember, I covered some of this in a prior show, but we're going to kind of revisit it, see if there's anything else we can add based on the information we got. So obviously you have the divide and conquer. So prosecutors often put pressure on co-defendants to turn against each other. In this case here, there's so much in context with Jake being probably the person that did it. And I think there's agreement to that in the court of public opinion. I think there's circumstantial evidence that could also point out that Jake continued with his child abuse, not just from Promise Faith, but also now onto Emmanuel, who we cannot find. So I do believe we are in the right direction, that if I was a prosecutor, I would start looking to flip Rebecca, because I think I would not want to flip the person who is the main person being responsible for possibly killing Emmanuel. I'm going to want to flip the lesser but somehow equal player. We'll figure that out. I mean, I want to make sure I don't piss anybody off, but technically a lot of people think she was involved, but not as involved as Jake. That doesn't minimize what her level of responsibility is, but I want to show people just how the mindset of maybe the prosecutors are going to work with her defender. Now,
right. Let me jump in right there, Anthony. Let me give a little bit to that. The prosecutors want to get everybody that has any responsibility. That's their job, to bring justice for that little baby. Anybody that's involved here, we're going to get through the court system. We're going to do it legally. We're going to prosecute you. We're going to get you convicted for what you did. But as the case starts to come apart, no case is absolutely perfect unless you had video, witnesses, and everybody pointed to him. She had nothing to do with it. We don't know exactly what happened here. So the key is their focus, I'm sure, is on who they think absolutely did it. And if we can't get the lesser evils, so to speak, we have to get the person who caused the death of the child. So if they have to start making deals, that's where deals start to be made. And people can be very upset and frustrated by deals that are given. She knew, she did. Right, but she might not have actually killed the child. He did. And we have got to get the killer if we can't get both. Just throwing that out.
No, that's great. And that's good that you said that. And I want to mention something. Jake is more experienced in these settings. Rebecca isn't, even though she does have some family that was involved in the system. I believe this is the first time she's been really involved. So again, I also have Jake's public loyalty, his outcry that she's innocent could be a shield showing he won't take the bait, making it harder for prosecutors to split them. Because I'll guarantee you, if he sees maybe that there's pressure coming his way, he could probably safely assume that they're going to try to work on flipping Rebecca. I would assume he would probably think that. So his next step would be, Rebecca, I'm on your side. I just said you're innocent, because maybe in her mind, she's thinking that what they're doing to Rebecca is maybe the same thing they're doing to Jake. Maybe they're trying to get Jake to flip, which I don't think that's the case. I think they have enough on Jake. I really do. But Rebecca's not through this. So Rebecca could be thinking, you know what? Maybe like they're trying to play me, they're trying to play Jake. So Jake yells out, you're innocent. And basically that makes Rebecca think, okay, he didn't flip. Let me not flip. And Joe, how common is it for prosecutors to try to put co-defendants against one another? And how effective is that strategy in child abuse cases?
Well, let's look at it. And you're right to separate it. Child abuse cases, that's a unique kind of a case. It creates all kinds of emotions in us, doesn't it? It's one thing to hear, somebody was in a bar and they were getting robbed and they fought back and they got killed. You say, okay, that's a terrible thing that happened. You feel bad for the person that got killed, but it's a robbery and it happens every day. When it comes to child abuse, I think the public, everyone, the cops, everybody, you can't help but be a human being and have empathy and understanding for that situation. So when we're looking at these two people, they would want to split them if that's what they have to do. And that's what I'm saying. If they have to get to the evidence, by now, I'm sure behind the scenes, whatever it is they've had in interviews, they have in whatever evidence they did recover, if they're targeting one person as the killer and the other as the accomplice, but not necessarily the killer, that's where they're making that calculation. Can we get them both? Or are we going to have a hard time getting him because we don't have the body? We need that body, right? That's helpful. We can do it without the body, but it's more difficult. So what are we going to do? We're going to focus on him. And if we have to break them up, then we break them up. The attorneys should be, people have in their minds, well, they both have attorneys and they're husband and wife, and therefore the attorneys are working together to protect. No, they're not. Each client's attorney is working for their client's best interest. Like her attorney's not going to his and going, okay, now how do we keep this from being bad for? No, because she has probably told her story, and that attorney is trying to protect her, and his is trying to protect him. But they both know how the system works too, and they are going to try and split them because that might be the only way they get the evidence that they need to get a conviction.
Yeah, and by the way, remember, she created a false narrative, and if that was Jake that influenced that, well played by Jake, because you pushed her right into the middle of the abuse case, because now she went out and created the false narrative. She's the one that told the story, and now that's an obstacle for the defense on her side as well as the prosecutor. I mean, are they going to keep with the obstruction, or they work with her? But I will tell you this: I think Rebecca's going to want to move things quicker, because the quicker it goes, the less things can come up that can complicate her defense. So basically, let's move things quicker, get this done, get Jake, get her to flip, get Jake held accountable, and then we go ahead and hopefully one day we can work with Jake later to find out really what happened with Emmanuel. But I think it would be beneficial for Rebecca to move things forward as quick as she can, because the longer it takes for them to kind of settle things out, if Jake's able to kind of use time on his side, well, then evidence can be looked at in different ways at that point. But if you get the momentum with Rebecca right now and keep that momentum with Rebecca moving forward, where all eyes are on Jake, it gives Rebecca more of a narrative that she can create that will have greater influence against Jake. But the longer it takes, then Jake starts to get his perspective in, which kind of starts to shift or balance the momentum. I have, and that's kind of what the next part is, controlling the narrative. So by declaring Rebecca's innocent, Jake frames the public story before prosecutors can define it. This may cast him as honorable, while buying Rebecca some sympathy and discouraging her defense from blaming him. I think that's the latter part is what has the most weight. And it's also a way of telling Rebecca, I won't sell you out, so don't sell me out. So, Joe, is Jake really protecting Rebecca, or is he trying to control how she approaches her own defense?
Okay, so here's the caveat when you're sitting back and you're watching something like this take place. Even though I'm a criminal investigator, I've been doing it for 30 years. I've been voir dired as an expert in many different areas. The fact is, I'm not on the ground with them. I'm not looking at the evidence. I'm not sitting in a room talking with them. But when I look at it, my first impression is that calling out that she's innocent is to send a message to her that I'm not giving you up. I'm telling them you didn't do this. And now what do we find out happened? Was it a situation that got out of control and he did something to the kid? Did she start something and he jumped up? We're not going to know that yet. But I think if I were to guess right now, I'd say that could be what he's doing. Hey, I didn't give you up. It's the only public message I can get to you. Everything is filtered through the lawyers and everything else. I'm calling it out. See what I just said? You're innocent. And I think you're right. Don't give me up. How that's going to play out in the long run is going to determine how long she's apart from him and how much her attorney starts to tell her they're going to drag you down with this. And then at that point, she might say, I know where the body is. I know where the baby is, and act in her own best interest. Or how long was he gone? Then you can kind of figure out how far away could the baby be. All that kind of stuff could start to come out as their sides break down.
Yeah, and I think like the I love you from the arraignment to now the you're innocent. I think he's aware that momentum is on her side right now, so he's trying to shift it. That's what it is. And now I wanted to bring this up. We have 3 more sections here real quick. I thought this was interesting. If Rebecca's defense team believes Jake is willing to fall on the sword, they may not push blame onto him. That benefits Jake indirectly by limiting how aggressively she distances herself. Jake's chivalry could actually be a survival tactic, avoiding being the sole scapegoat. So could Jake's public defense of Rebecca actually be a way to keep her defense team from throwing him under the bus? And what I got from this is basically, now mind you, he never said he didn't do it, so this is not a confession. But if he says she's innocent, then maybe Rebecca's team will be like, hey, wait a second, maybe there's something that we can get from him that can alleviate her some level of accountability for her so we could start working on some lighter sentence. But now will it make it harder for her defense team to start saying, okay, hey, we worked on her and that was great what Jake did, but we still got to give something back to the prosecutor, and the prosecutor wants full accountability. So even though Jake helped Rebecca, is she going to be willing to help Jake?
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does. But I got to tell you, a lot of these things, how they shake out in these preliminary things, really, you start to see strategy, and you start to see how it might go, and what people, when the rubber meets the road, when they finally, let her know, and she gets clear in her head that she didn't have anything with killing the boy, that it's her baby. He's moldering in the woods somewhere, or he was put in a garbage can, or whatever happened to this little baby. They work on her enough where she'll have had enough of this. Her self-preservation might kick in, and they're going to want her to give a statement, because whatever they have on her, they're going to try and go for the maximum. You don't do it, we'll find you guilty of accomplice, this, that, and the other thing, to hurting a corpse or whatever. You're going to go to jail. Do you want to go to jail? Or you can do what's right. He's going to lose. You might as well get the best benefit. One of the things that happens in these cases, and the other side, I'm going to look at the human side now. They're husband and wife, and we don't know the nature of their relationship. We're hearing about there might have been abuse. There could have been. There's still sometimes there's love in relationships that there's abuse. They're not all totally destructive, and that's very lightly said on the top, right? Unless you've lived through that. We go into a house where, say, the husband is dealing heroin. He's selling heroin out of the house. He's selling heroin, making money. The whole house is running on his drug dealing. The wife's aware of it. She's not slinging bags out the door, but she's aware of it. She knows where the dope is. She knows where the money is. She sees him cutting it up while they're watching TV, whacking it up. And then we get a search warrant. We go in there, and it's obvious that the drugs are in a common area. Maybe they're in the bedroom. The wife had enough. We're locking everybody up. And one of the pressure things that happens on law enforcement end is that, yes, was she aware of it? Did she receive money from the drug dealing? Did she get food because of the money that was bought? Did she pay the bills with it? What did she know what was going on? Did she see it? She's actively participating, even if she's not slinging the bags or cutting up the dope. So we would charge everybody. Now, what the reactions we see from the husbands very often is that if there are children involved, he loves his wife. He doesn't want her to go to jail. This is something he did. He's willing to, as you said, be chivalrous, even in the criminal world. I don't want my wife charged. I don't want her going to jail. I want her to take care of the kids. I'll take the weight, right? So we see that a lot. Is that a bargaining pin? It very often is. There's a lot of discretion with who you charge and why. So he might tell you, listen, she didn't have anything to do with the drug dealing business. And you could say, well, she might not have had anything, like I said, with cutting the bags, making the buys, selling. But she knew what was going on. She benefited from it. Therefore, she's involved and she's culpable for that. But we are willing to look at it as maybe she's not that culpable. You're going to take the weight. She had no choice because you did it in the house. It's your fault. Okay, maybe we're willing to look at that. What are you going to do for us to ameliorate those charges against your wife? I'll tell you what I did. I'll tell you who my dealer is. I'll work for you. I'll work it up. I'll flip, and we'll go from there. So these things are real. It could be, I don't want my wife to go to jail. It could also be, she knows everything. And if I let her go, they're going to make her a deal. And she can say, I'm going to tell you who his supplier is, where the money is kept. I'll tell you where, because when it comes down to it, self-preservation often kicks in when people start to realize the long-term effects of what they've been involved in. The immediate emotional thing is, hey, it's us. We're in this together. Whatever it is, we came up with a story. We're going to stick to it. And as time goes by, that breaks down because most people are not master criminals. They're just regular people, got themselves involved in something, and they're trying to figure it out, and they think they can control it. But as time goes by, those things start to break down, and the relationship can break down. And people do go for, hey, I have kids. Do I want to go to jail? He's not going to give it up. Well, I'm not going to go to jail. I'm going to take care of these kids. Let me tell you where the money is. Let me tell you where his whole process. So I do see that as a potential here as well. And here you're not talking about, slinging bags of heroin. You're talking about the death of a child who could have been murdered or killed negligently or in multiple other ways. So I think that is kind of the process. And that's why I tell that story. That's kind of how these things go. And as the prosecution and the police, you sit back and you look for the dynamic and you work on it. If I realize, boy, they really are tight, they really do love each other, he really does want to protect her, I'll probably let him protect her. But you got to give us something. You got to tell us what happened here. Are you culpable for what's been going on? Not, no, it wasn't me, right? So you kind of get that process. If it turns out that they're going to go for self-preservation, then you up those standards. Listen, you think he cares about you? He's telling us not only did you know about it, but you did this, that, and the other thing. Whoa, wait a minute. I was just to let him do it in my house. Now I'm going to go to jail, lose my kids, all that kind of stuff. So there's tons of pressures that you can put on people. And that's, like I said, everybody thinks, oh, truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth. It's about getting to justice. And there's lots of legal ways. None of those things are illegal. They're all tried and true, using informants, using confessions and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's important to keep in mind.
Yeah. And guys, remember a couple of things here too. If he really cared for her, I don't think he'd be yelling out things to have her sit conflicted as she starts to do things that she must do for her own survival. So I love you, yelling that out and making her now not just worry about herself, but worry about you. And then you're innocent. Same type of game, just it's the same type of game, but you notice the shift makes sense. I love you, because no strategy has been introduced yet at that point. So he yells, I love you, pulls on emotion. But now that there's a strategy being involved, now he shifts from emotions to, hey, she's innocent. But the question is, innocent of what, though? I mean, innocent of creating a story, innocent of abusing the baby, innocent of killing Emmanuel. I mean, now we know he knows something. When he yells out she's innocent, he knows something, but we haven't really declared what he's saying she's innocent of. But it's funny how he went from the emotional to the second time around, the strategic. Why not still say the same thing? Why not still say, I love you? Can't say I love you now because the game is shifted. Now it's no longer about sympathy. Now it's about, strategy. So, and I think that clearly comes into play when he says you're innocent, because he's no longer pulling on emotion. He's pulling on strategy that is probably being implemented at this time for the divide and conquer method. I have, so again, by protecting Rebecca, Jake risks absorbing the brunt of the prosecution. If prosecutors succeed in painting Rebecca as manipulated or less culpable, Jake could be left carrying the full blame. And this move could backfire if jurors see him as the dominant aggressor and her as a passive participant. So, Joe, does protecting Rebecca strengthen Jake's position, or could it make him the easy target for full accountability?
Yeah, I don't think it makes his position any better. He's doing that. It sounds to me from what we're hearing about it, he's doing that to try and manipulate what she says and does. In the end, they're going to have the evidence that they have. I'm sure they have a good case right now for who did what. It's just a matter of, it's always better to have physical evidence, statements to back things up, and have cooperating people that are willing to tell you, this is what I did, but here's what he did, or here's what she did. So I don't know that it makes his case any better, because like I said, when the rubber meets the road, when it gets to trial, if it gets that far, everyone's going to be in their own camps and they're going to do what they need to do for themselves. Getting to that, you might see a situation where he starts to realize she's willing to make a statement, she's willing to this, that, and the other thing, and then he's going to go self-preservation. All right, how do I make a deal? All right, she's going to give me up. I don't want the death penalty. I'll do this, I'll do that. I'll tell you where the body really is. I'll, give you more, et cetera, et cetera. That's how these things, they start to break down as things crumble. Everyone has their initial idea of how they're going to do their case. And the defense will tell you, yeah, we can beat the search warrant. We can beat this. We're going to get. And as those things start to fall apart, you're not beating them. You're not getting rulings by the judge that are in your favor. Evidence stays in. People start to make statements. More things come forward. As your solid rock of you're going to get away with this gets chipped away. Now you're left with, okay, how do I make this the best for me? And that, that might be why he's not giving up the baby's body, which is pretty cold. I'm not saying he is, but that's pretty cold to know where that child is. And I'll hold that for a last minute thing. I'll tell you where the body is if you give me only 20 years or whatever kind of deal you'd want to make. But that's usually how that works.
Yeah, and guys, I think like even his effort to do that, and it could also be performative, could be an effort to draw sympathy to from later on when it goes down the line. Jurors could see, well, he does care for something. He does care for her. And you never know what people could draw sympathy from. But I have how it could strengthen his position. He could look selfless, showing loyalty and even love. Jurors may see him as trying to protect someone he cares about, which could humanize him. And if the defense can argue they were equal participants, protecting Rebecca might prevent her from turning against him, which means that that's a unique perspective too, because if they're equal, then they go down as equal partners. But they may decide, hey, listen, you weren't equal in this. What are you doing, man? Come on. It's 70-30. But maybe loyalty to her will keep things 50-50 when the defense and the prosecutor, the defense for Rebecca and the prosecutor will be looking to maybe shift it a little bit, 70-30 maybe. And then how does it weaken Jake's position? Exactly what Joe said. In reality, the bigger risk is that prosecutor sees on the strategy to isolate him as the mastermind. It allows Rebecca's defense team to pivot, painting her as the manipulated, abused, or misguided, while Jake shoulders the blame, and jurors may decide protecting her equals acknowledging he was more responsible. So overall, the strategy looks noble on the surface, but is highly dangerous. Unless carefully balanced, it makes Jake the easier target for prosecutors and could leave him carrying the entire weight of accountability. And the last part I have here, Joe, it's just the final thoughts. So Jake's defense of Rebecca may look noble, but legally it's layered, as we mentioned. I believe it really is layered. It could be about loyalty, manipulation, or strategy, maybe all three at once, maybe. And that to me still involves, okay, maybe he is loyal, but this loyalty is going to come with manipulation. It's part of a strategy. So it may not be loyalty as we would see loyalty, but just loyalty as a bastardized view of loyalty. Like the only reason why we're loyal to each other is because we have something on each other. And then the Haro case highlights how in high stakes criminal trials, relationships aren't just personal, they're tactical. Joe, final question. What do you think? Is Jake's loyalty a sign of love or just a legal chess move?
Well, this is going to come down to, and again, sitting with them, knowing what there actually went on between them, would help you to make a much more educated guess at what he's doing. Looking at it, we say there might have been abuse in the relationship, so that would make, I would think, lean towards he's using that as a strategy. If it turns out they really did have a loving relationship, but some bumps in the road, and I don't mean abuse as bumps. I'm saying we don't know the kind of abuse. Did they argue? Did they yell? Did he hit, beat? I don't know. But let's say they had just a rough relationship between the two, they're difficult, but they really do love each other. Then it could be he might be trying to protect her. So sitting down with them is what's going to help. My guess from afar, from watching this, would be that everything he's doing is manipulating. Everything he's doing is trying to make the best deal for himself. And if he had to at the last minute throw her under the bus, I think we would.
Yep. That's what I agree. I think this is a good dialogue, and I keep things moving. Maybe as we move forward, maybe I'll see if I could do the court cases live here. I think it'll be interesting to follow along with the audience. But again, guys, I got to get the subscriber count out. So keep on coming in, keep on, interacting, engaging. Got to get me up into the algorithm because I'm dead again. My subscriber count, really haven't had any subscribers in almost a week now. So any help, please, pass the message, word of mouth, whatever you can do, because I can't always trust YouTube to share my stuff out. Hey, Joe, anything you'd like to say in closing, sir?
No, thank you for having me on here. I think it's a great opportunity to help educate everybody as to how things actually work. And I like looking at these cases. Criminal justice, providing justice has been my whole life, and I enjoy it. And I would just say, go take a look at the podcast, the webcast that we have on youtube.com/@BlueHeartWebcast. We got tons and tons of content in there, training, talking, interviews, lots of good stuff. But I love being here with all of you. Thank you.
Yeah, same here, guys. And guys, same thing. If you have a chance, guys, check out what we have. I have a book on the market, Inmate Manipulation Decoded. Check it out because it kind of gives you insight in how people manipulate. It's not just inmates, guys. It's in the real world. I mean, they learn it, they apply it wherever they're at. So I think you guys would find the book extremely interesting. But as always, guys, stay safe.